We humans often speak of loyalty. We write poems about devotion and make promises that we hope will last a lifetime. But the truth is, the purest, most unbreakable bond the world has ever witnessed wasn't forged between two humans. It was given to us by a creature whose heart knew no boundaries, no conditions, and no end. This is the true story of Greyfriars Bobby, a dog whose love was so profound it conquered the cold passage of time, outlasting even death itself. Our story begins in the 1850s, amidst the misty cobblestone streets of Edinburgh, Scotland. Gas lamps flickered like painted stars against the thick evening fog. Through the quiet, shadowy alleys walked John Gray, a night watchman for the city police. It was a bitterly cold and lonely profession, but John was never truly alone. Trotting faithfully at his heels was a scrappy little Skye Terrier named Bobby. They were an inseparable pair. Night after night, they patrolled the sleeping city, braving the biting Scottish winds and the freezing rain. When the darkest hours passed, they would seek refuge in Trail's dining rooms, a small, warm cafe where John would share his meager meals with his best friend. To the rest of the world, John was just a humble watchman, and Bobby just a little dog. But to each other, they were the entire universe. But the world can be incredibly fragile. The harsh winters eventually took their toll. In February of 1858, John Gray fell deeply ill with tuberculosis. Despite fighting with all his strength, he passed away, leaving his loyal companion behind. John was laid to rest in Greyfriars Kirkyard, a quiet cemetery nestled in the heart of the city. When the funeral ended and the mournful crowd dispersed, one tiny figure remained behind. Little Bobby lay down on the freshly turned earth of his master's grave. The groundskeeper, a strict man named James Brown, tried repeatedly to chase the dog away. He would lock the heavy iron gates at night, only to find Bobby shivering in the freezing rain the next morning, huddled as close to the grave as possible. Eventually, witnessing such heartbreaking devotion, the groundskeeper's heart softened. He gave up trying to move the dog and instead brought him warmth and shelter. For Bobby, a comfortable house with a roaring fireplace held no warmth if John wasn't there. His master's cold grave was the only place on earth he belonged. The years began to drift by. The sky shifted through the soft, watercolor hues of spring rains, the golden haze of summer, the amber leaves of autumn, and the brutal white frost of winter. Yet Bobby never abandoned his post. His routine remained unbroken. Every single day, just as the famous 1 o'clock gun echoed from Edinburgh Castle, Bobby would leave the grave for a few brief moments. He would trot down to the same cafe he used to visit with John, accept a small meal from the kindly owner, and immediately hurry back to the cemetery. In 1867, a new law was passed in the city stating that all dogs without registered owners would be destroyed. Bobby, a dog who belonged only to a ghost, was in terrible danger. But by then, the little terrier had captured the heart of the entire city. Sir William Chambers, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, personally stepped forward. He paid for Bobby's license himself and gifted the dog a beautiful brass collar, declaring that Bobby was no longer a stray, he belonged to the city of Edinburgh. 14 long years passed. 14 years of relentless wind, changing seasons, and an aching, silent wait. For a human, 14 years is a chapter of life. But for a dog, it is an entire lifetime. Bobby gave his entire existence to a man who could no longer pet him, call his name, or throw him a bone. Finally, on a quiet winter day in 1872, old and frail, little Bobby closed his eyes for the last time. He breathed his final breath right there, resting on the very earth he had guarded for so long. He was buried just inside the gates of Greyfriars, mere steps away from his beloved John. Today, if you walk the streets of Edinburgh, you will find a small bronze statue of a Skye Terrier. Millions of people travel from every corner of the globe just to gently touch his nose, polishing it to a gleaming gold. They do it because that small statue reminds us of a beautiful, undeniable truth. True love doesn't end when a heart stops beating. True love waits, and it never, ever leaves.